Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone had a great weekend. Before we jump into the course, there's a couple quick things I want to go over. The first one being the homework is due for weeks 6 and 7. It's due Friday, so certainly make sure that you submit it. Or not Friday, Sunday, I mean. Make sure that you submit it by that point. Apart from that, let me know if there's any questions with the homework. I'm happy to address it. But if not, of course, it's important to remember that we had a pretty good football game this past, what was that, Saturday? Certainly impressive show by our team, so certainly that's important. But what's also important is doing SQL. So today, we'll be talking about some various things to do with a many-to-many entity. So basically, we'll be focusing on Chapter 5. So if you'll think back earlier in class, we did this ERD right here, where we have student, course, instructor, section, and registration all as entities. And you'll notice that there's some many-to-many relationships here. For example, a student can be registered for more than one section, and a section is likely going to have more than one student registered for it. So we addressed that by using the associative entity, in this case registration, where all we had to do was take the two primary keys from the entities that were associated together and place those as a primary key, forming a composite key. So we'll take a look at this stuff. Is there any other way we could simplify this? I believe this might have been an exam question. So how can we go about simplifying this ERD in terms of removing an entity? All right. Anyone have any ideas? All right, I will share my idea. What if we just delete the instructor entity and just change the student to person? Certainly pretty cool to do that. You know, we're not losing any information when we go about this. So now, of course, if we wanted to be, you know, perfectly correct, we'd also add a relationship from person onto section to represent that person, you know, the section is taught by one person. So we could certainly do that if we wanted to. Probably not. I just wanted to kind of go over that a little bit. So that's what we're going to be modeling today. So let me pull up the canvas here and show you all which assignments we're in. All right. So if you go down to the bottom of week 2, you should see where I have posted the Chapter 5 tutorial.sql. That's going to contain the table create statements. So just kind of make things easy. And then I also went ahead and made 4 different CSVs for the different information we're going to be importing into each of the tables we're creating. So if you'll just go ahead and download all those, and then I'll give everyone just a minute or two to download these, and then we'll jump into everything. So again, take just a minute. There are 5 different files. Go ahead and download them, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm going to assume that everyone's had the time to go ahead and download those. If not, just continue to go about that. But what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go ahead and create these tables. So to do that, we're just going to open up my SQL Workbench, just create, load up any of these instances. So just double click on it. Give it just a second to load up. Now, just to keep things nice and clean, I'm going to go ahead and create a new schema. So just as a reminder, all you have to do is just right-click in some of the empty space here, and you should be given the option to create a schema. It's a little bit difficult for me right now because I've got the font size so large. But if I close this, you should be able to go to right-click, create schema. You can just call this anything you want. So I'm going to call this Chapter 5 class, but you can call it anything as long as you make sure to follow the lowercase character for the first. So once we get that created, we have it at the very top here. We're going to right click on it, set this as default. This is important because if we don't do this, then it's not going to allow us to really use it very easily. So it just makes it a lot easier to work with. Since we're only staying inside of one schema, that's perfectly cool to do. So now I'm just going to go ahead and open up that SQL script. So we're going to be in Chapter 5 tutorial, so we just open that up. And as you can see here, start off with some different table definitions. So let's go through these briefly. First table we're creating is the person table. As you could guess, we're going to have all the attributes that we want to have about the person. The person status is going to be either student or instructor, depending upon how the person is. So if they're an instructor, they're going to have the instructor status. If they're a student, they're going to have the student status. We're going to keep it nice and simple and assume that there's no cases of both, but you know, in reality, there probably would be cases of both. Then we have the course table. So basically, this contains information about the courses. We don't want to replicate this for every instance of the courses. We're going to have a lot of times where we're going to have maybe, you know, across our entire data set, we may have 1,000 instances of an English course. We don't need to have 1,000 times what the name of the course is. We can instead put this inside of a course table and only have it once. So as you can see here, we're going to get the course number, course subject, the amount of credit the course offers, and the course name. So then we're going to make the section table. As you can see here, we're going to use the course registration number as the primary key. You don't have to use that as primary key. I think it's a lot easier than working with all the other fields as a primary key, but you certainly have that freedom should you choose to. So we're going to get, you know, just the course number, course subject, as well as instructor, which semester the course is offered in, the year, the time, the building, and the room. So basically, each of those things are going to be, well, the combination of all those fields will be unique. So that is technically a candidate key. However, we're not going to worry about that. So I have gone ahead and set all of these as not null, because if I don't do that, then I can't make any guarantees that that candidate key will be unique. So I need to make sure that I have something in all of these fields. So we could certainly offer 2 English classes at 11 a.m., but they can't be taught by the same person. Or we could certainly offer 2 English classes at, you know, noon, but they can't both be inside the same classroom. That's just not logical. So that's why we want to make sure that we have all these attributes set as not null. Then finally, we're going to have that associative entity, the registration table. So for this, it's pretty straightforward. We just put in the course registration number and the ID number of the student. So the course registration number, of course, is of the course, ID number is of the student, and then we just set our constraints here, and then we'll be good to go. So any questions so far? That we haven't actually created anything. I just went through the table definitions a little bit. I'm happy to answer any questions. Anyone having trouble getting to this point? All right. Certainly don't hesitate to let me know if you're having any trouble getting to this point. This is very important to kind of create a table with, or create a database with several tables that all relate to each other. So let's go ahead and just create the first table. Just as a reminder, all you have to do is just highlight the first little bit here. So I'm highlighting from line 1 to line 13. Just going to click this lightning bolt right here to execute that selection. Now we've got our table created. We're just going to refresh in the schema. I'm going to expand out the tables list. Just going to mouse over the person table we just created. Go over to the third icon that has the sort of like a spreadsheet looking thing. Just click on that. Just going to go ahead and import the data. Just as a reminder, you just use the import icon right here. It's the one that has the folder kind of pointing upwards. So now I'm just going to select, because it's the person, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to import this person table. And if you're having trouble with this, open it up in Excel and save it as a CSV without doing any sort of UTF-8 or anything like that. There should be an option. It's about halfway down on the save as to save as a just CSV, kind of separated. But hopefully I did that correctly this time and Canvas didn't change anything on us. So let's go ahead and try this out. So as before, we've already created the table, so we can just use the existing table for person. That should be the only table inside the schema at this point. So let's go ahead and use that. Now we should be in a good spot to just leave all these fields as default. So as you can tell, we have all the different fields associated. Now it's important that we show logs just to make sure everything goes okay. So we're just going to go ahead and hit next, and looks like it imported all of our data. So as you can tell here, we imported 20 records. That's the exact amount we had, so we're in a good spot so far. So let me know if there's any questions. I'm going to try to move through this a little bit quickly just so we get all the tables created though. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this out. Now let's go ahead and do the same for all of our other tables. I've got them in order, so the foreign keys won't have any problems with dependencies. So we're just going to go ahead and create the course table now. All right, so I've got the course table created. Just going to refresh the schemas. Now, as before, we're just going to go ahead and do the same process. It is a little bit tedious. I apologize for that, but this is really the only way to get the different tables to have their stuff imported. So like I said, I'm going to go a little bit quick, but certainly feel free to stop me with any questions. And make sure you put it on the existing table for the course, because it's the stuff you're importing. Leave that as default. Show logs. Looks like it worked. I've only got 5 courses, and it imported 5 records, so that's exactly correct. If you want to verify, you could hit this little refresh icon. So I just threw some courses in here. Of course, you could also do select star from the course. That'll also work. You got a lot of options. Certainly, that's a very beneficial thing of SQL. So now let's go ahead and create the section table right here. Whoops, I went a little bit too crazy there. So let's just go ahead and create the section table. And again, it's just going to be the same thing here. We're just going to import the data. Make sure we get the correct file. We're getting the section information. And we definitely want to put it inside the section table. As you can tell here, this is the information about each course section. So again, we can leave it all as default. Go ahead and import. And we have 12 records imported. That's the amount of records we had, so we're in a good spot. I'm just going to finish this up. And now there's one more table we have to create and import data into. It's the registration table. Again, this is just the associative entity, so this is an important table to establish that relationship. So we went ahead and created it. Now we're just going to load our data into it. So I'm just going to select the right file. As you can tell, there's a lot fewer columns inside of this table. There's only the 2 primary keys, so we're good to go by just hitting next, show the logs, hit next. And there's about 60 records in here, so let's see if we got them all. We did. That's a very good sign. So yeah, we've got all of our data imported now. What do we want to do with it? So we've certainly imported all the stuff. Let's go ahead and do some basic review on how to do some basic joins. So this is more like chapter 4. We're just going to do one table joining another table. So let's go ahead and just join the section to course. So we want to see what is inside of the section table. Which courses are we offering? So currently we don't have all the additional information about each course. We really only have the course subject and the course number. We don't have the other information like the course name or the other attributes from the course that we only have those 2. So let's go ahead and just make a basic join statement. So I'm just going to do select star from section. We're going to join the course table, join course, and we're just going to make the on condition section dot course num equals course dot course num. Now I kind of cheated a little bit here, and I made it to where the course numbers were unique. It's probably going to be better practice to create an index using the course number and the subject, but we don't have to do that here. We're going to keep it nice and simple. So if we run this, we should see a listing of all 12 sections and which courses those sections represent. So as you can see here, we have the information from the section table, and then we also have information about the courses. So this is certainly looking pretty promising so far. But we're not quite done yet. In fact, we're really nowhere close to being done yet. We certainly, in this chapter, want to do many-to-many relationships. We want to be able to join more than just 2 tables. Maybe we want to join 3 tables. So could be we want to also add in information about who teaches these courses. So we can certainly easily do that. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this query. If the touchpad would cooperate a little bit better, that'd be nice. So I'm just going to copy this first part of the query because we can really reuse it. We don't have to, create new every single time. So now we're just going to add in another join. So in this case, we're going to join the person table, person.id number equals section.instructor. And the reason we're doing section.instructor is we want to know who teaches the course. So we're going to get the information about the instructors, as well as the information about the courses. So we're just going to go ahead and run this query right here. And as you can tell, we got the information about the sections up front. Then we've got information about the courses. And then lastly, we have information about who teaches the courses. In practice, you probably wouldn't want to be able to display the social security number that easily. But for an example, these are obviously not real social security numbers. So that's how you do a join with 3. So basically, you just do the first join, set the condition for it. Then you do the second join and set the condition for it as well. So it's really straightforward, not too complicated, luckily. But certainly let me know if there's any questions. I'm happy to address them. But let's say, 3 table join, that's pretty cool. But we want to be even cooler. We want to do a 4 table join. So this is a little bit trickier to understand. So I'm going to do this step by step. I'm going to start off with just a 1 table join, then I'm going to join a 2nd table, then a 3rd table, and lastly I'm going to join all 4 tables together and see what we can do with that. So let's go ahead and just start by selecting everything from the registration table. Select star for registration. And let's just run this right here and see what we get. So as you can imagine, we get everything inside the registration table. We have all 60 registrations. We have the courses that people are registered for, as well as the ID number of the student that registered for the course. So then maybe we want to go ahead and add in information about the section. So just like we just did, only we're going to add in section. So we're just going to do a simple join with section. So section on registration CRN equals section.crn. And I'm actually going to put this join on a 2nd line just so it's easier to see. I'm going to tab it over. Put our good friend the semicolon at the end. And what we have here is we're just joining the registration table to the section table. So this should give us information about all 60 registrations, which sections they are. So when we run this, we can see we do in fact have that, and we can of course see that the CRNs match here because that's the condition we applied to it. So certainly we're in a pretty good spot so far, but this is only 2 tables. We wanted to get to 4 tables. So like I said, I'm going to add in another join here. So we've got the section information. What about the course information? So let's go ahead and just copy this previous, whoops, this is really finicky here. I'm going to go ahead and delete some of these extra lines. A little bit easier to work with. Let's just copy this right here. And let's go ahead and, so we've got this, we want to add in another join, basically. So, if we want to add in the course, we want to, of course, do another statement for join course on, and let's do course.courseNum. And that's going to be equal to section.courseNum. Because we're assuming that the course numbers are unique. Like I say, in practice, it's probably going to be a lot better to have an index associated with them. But we didn't do that. So when we run this, we can see we have the registrations, we have information about the sections, and now we have information about each course. So what's missing? There's one thing we haven't included yet. So we have individual students that have registered. Do we have information about the individual students? We have it. We don't have it inside the query yet. So this is where it gets a little bit complicated, but not too complicated. We're just going to add in yet another join statement. So we're just going to go ahead and do another join. This time we're going to do person on, instead of doing the instructor, we're going to make sure we get the student. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to add in person.personID, person.ID number, my bad, equals the registration.ID number. Now again, if we want to get information about the instructor, we could certainly do that. Instead of doing registration.ID number, which gives us the student information, we could do section.instructor, and that would allow us to get information about the instructor of each course. So we've got two different options there. As you can see, this is going to give us information about the student. So all the person status will be student. And we have, of course, our students who registered for the course. But let's go ahead and just see what that other condition would look like. So let me just copy this and change it up just a little bit. So again, I'm only going to change the registration. I'm going to change this to the section dot, I believe it's called instructor. Let's see if this works. All right, so I'm just going to run this query. Yeah, it looks like that's correct. So now we have information about the instructors of the course. So there's a lot of different things we could do. In fact, we could put both of those, but not into one query. We'd have to use separate queries because we're referencing the same entity there. So any questions about the for table join? Like I said, basically, all you have to do is just keep on adding on the join statements. It is a little bit confusing, but it's not terribly confusing. So certainly there's some amount of flexibility there. Now let's review some of the Chapter 3 concepts where we just apply where conditions. So let's say we're interested in getting the class roster for course number 10. So how can we do that? We could do select star from person, and then we could do something like join registration because we need to have that registration information. I'm going to set a one condition there. It's going to be registration dot CRN, and that's going to be equal to the no, this is incorrect. That's my bad, guys. It's going to be registration.id equals person.id. Now this is going to give us, of course, if we run this as is, it's going to give us the roster for every course. But we want to have a specific course. So to do that, all we have to do is just do a where condition. So if we know the course number, we can just come down here, add in where, and then we could do RN equals to 10. And this should go ahead and give us, for just the course 10, who is inside the course. So this is the roster for this specific course 10. Of course, we can make this anything we wanted. Someone throw me out another number between 1 and 12. 5, we could certainly do 5. And we'll get the roster for class 5. So as you can see here, now we've got some people inside of the course. Certainly lots of people registered for these various courses. Of course, it's completely fictional, but this is how you'd go about it. So any questions about doing the where conditions on these? Again, I'm happy to address any questions at all. Is this making sense to everybody? Kind of. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about some powerful operators we can also apply to using these sort of nested join statements. So we're going to use some group by. Maybe we want to have how many sections are within inside of a particular course. So let's go ahead and brainstorm that. So we're going to be, determining how many courses exist basically within inside of our table. Now we could apply lots of conditions to that if we wanted, but we want to have at the beginning, let's just do select course name. And we're going to get the count of course name. We're going to do from course join section. Now why are we doing the join section? Why can't we just get the course name from the course table? Well, we can, but that's not going to allow us to have the information we're looking for. We're looking for how many sections exist of a particular course. So to do that, we have to make sure we use the join. And of course, this is going to be on the course.courseNum. That's going to be equal to section course num. Now, can we run this as is? Are we through yet, or we need to do something else? Well, let's just see. So I'm trying to get each course and how many sections exist of that course. So let's see if this will give us that. So the problem is this does not. Can anyone tell me why this does not as is? So the issue is we're not grouping by anything at this point. All we're doing is we're just selecting the course name as well as the count of the course names. So we have to actually group by those variables. So all we have to do is just come down here, use our good friend group by, and just go ahead and say course name. Okay. And now when we run this, this should give us the correct answer. And of course it does. So we can see here, we have inside of our sections, we have 12 sections. So this should add up to 12. Basically, you got a bunch of 2's and then you got a 4. So that does add to 12. If you add up 4 times 2 plus 4, it's 12. So we're in a good spot. We can see there are 4 Intro to English classes. Intro to English 1. And then every other course has 2 instances of it. So it's very important that we use that group by correctly, because if we don't use the group by, it's not going to go ahead and group the stuff as we're looking for. So certainly it's pretty cool we can do that, though. So any questions so far? Okay. Now, I also said earlier in the semester, we're not going to use a whole lot of regular expression. It's a very powerful thing, but there's over 30 different types of regular expression. So I wouldn't ever have you memorize those. It's sort of the type of thing where if you need to do something specific with a textual field, all you have to do is Google what you're trying to do, and it'll pretty much tell you, here's how you format the stuff. So I would never have you memorize that. But there's a couple that I think are very important. So for this case, we're just going to use the contains. So we're going to see what contains this group of characters. So we're just going to select let's just get the course name. In semester, and this will be like if you're trying to register for a class. You want to get the various information for what you're trying to register for. So here, from the course table, we're going to go ahead and join section and course.courseNum. And then we're going to add in our good friend the where. So we're going to do where course name reg x for regular expression. We don't have to use equals actually. ENG. And this is of course going to be for English. So we're just going to see where the course name contains ENG. So maybe this would also give us engineering, for example. But we don't have that inside of our database. Let's see. Looks like we've got an error here. I wonder why. Oh, I see. Didn't put a semicolon on the thing above. So let's go ahead and run this query right here. And as you can tell, this is going to give us all of the courses that exist for our specific, what we look for, which is anything containing ENG. So I've got a bunch of Intro to English courses. Maybe we're going to register for an English course. This is how we could go about it. So we could really change that around and have lots of different things associated there. The last thing I want to cover today is using the different operators like intersect and union. Who remembers what intersect is? Anyone remember what the intersect is? So what is an intersection? Not exactly. In an intersect, we take two conditions, and we basically say they both have to be true. So it's the intersection. If we're thinking about a Venn diagram, draw this out. So if we're going to have a Venn diagram, in fact, let me raise up the screen real fast. Put on a blank screen. So basically, we have condition A. And then we also have condition B. Okay, so these are the two things. And if we're getting the intersection, this is the intersection. So whatever they have in common, they both have that true. So this is going to be intersection. Okay, now let's kind of keep that in mind. So basically, inside the book, they give an example, and they say if you use the first condition, go ahead and do the query for that. Then use intersect, and then use the next select part. So I'm just going to copy this from my notes, just to keep things nice and easy. Because in MySQL, I'll go ahead and give you a hint. It doesn't recognize the intersect operator. So we're going to talk about how we could get around that. As you can see here, it does not recognize intersect as a valid operator. Whoops, you can't see because I got the screen still. So sorry about that, guys. You should be able to see it, though. So basically, you cannot use intersect inside of SQL. So we want to get around that. We still want to be able to select this. So what we're trying to do is select where the fall semester is selected. So we want to only see courses that are offered in the fall, but we also only want to see English courses. So it's going to be two different conditions. Like, we're not interested in engineering courses offered in fall. We're not interested in psychology courses that are offered in fall. We're only interested in English courses that are offered in fall. So normally we could just use intersect. However, I said earlier in the semester, there are some slight differences in how different packages treat the various syntax within SQL. So there's some slight differences, not many, but there are certainly some. So in this case, we can't just use intersect. So instead of using intersect, we're just going to use and exist. You think back to the exist operator. What does the exist operator do? Tells whether something exists. Certainly pretty straightforward. So to do this, we're going to want to get the same sort of information. So let's just go ahead and copy that. And then instead of doing intersect, we're just going to change that to and exist and just put the rest of that inside of a parentheses. So parenthetical statement there, we'll be in a good spot. So, like I said, basically it's all we have to do. Just get the course name, the course subject, and the course number from the course table, where the course subject equals English. That's our first condition. Then our second condition is we want to get the section year to 2019 and the semester to fall. So if we run this, we should get the courses that are offered, the English courses offered in fall 2019. And we do. We can take either Intro to English 1 or we can take Intro to English 2. Those are two choices there for that specific time frame. So all we did is we just changed this from intersect to and exist, and then we put the rest of it inside of a nice parenthetical statement. So any questions about this? Like I say, just some minor differences inside of MySQL from other applications we could use, like MySQL Server, Microsoft, or not MySQL Server, just SQL Server for Microsoft. There's a couple others, So yeah, that's basically what we're doing here. And then lastly, there is one more operator we're interested in. It is going to be the union. So the union, let me go ahead and raise the screen back up and talk about it a little bit. So basically all the union is it is both condition. If either condition is true, it's like an or. It's saying if condition A is true or condition B is true. So when you think about what the union is going to be everything. So all this condition, the entirety of this is the union. So the intersection is only if both are true. The union is if either are true. And luckily for us, the union is inside of the MySQL, so you don't have to do anything special. So in this case, let's just go ahead and get this last little query here. Go to the end of this last one. And basically, we're just going to get the similar type of information. We're just going to get the course names. Only instead of doing the intersect, we're just going to put a union in, and we're going to get either courses offered in the fall or English courses. So let's see what this does for us. All right, let's run this. And this is going to give us all the courses that are either offered in the fall or are English courses. So as you can see here, this should be pretty much every course inside of the table. Looks like we might be missing one, but that's okay. So that's all we really have to do to apply the union. It's just going to be if either are true. And let me turn off the blank screen. Sorry about that, guys. I forgot about the screen. Yeah, that's all we're doing. So are there any questions about anything we've covered today? Does it make sense? Is it confusing? What do you guys think? Exactly. So that's exactly correct. So just for that one, you can't exactly go by what the book says when it's talking about intersect, because like I say, MySQL doesn't recognize it. But really easy workaround is just to use and exist in that place. Any other questions? All right, next class, we're going to do some stuff using table alii. That should be a lot of fun as well. I will see you all then. Hope you all have a great day.